We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk.
Welcome to another episode of P-Car Talk. I am Mike.
And I'm Aaron.
And we got a lot of stuff to go over this episode. We're going to talk a little bit about G-body cars. Maybe the market's cooling off some. Porsche gets another win. Of course, they're the best. We'll talk a little bit about TJ Russell's Baja build, which is an outstanding build. Talk about the Porsche Junior Driver Program. Talk about Sera Tremble. She is a stunt driver that Porsche did an article on. She's on Instagram, which is pretty cool, and why that's important. I've been following her for a while, and I think it's pretty awesome. We'll talk a little bit about Taycan stuff, and then we'll do basically remember everything that's going on because we go over a lot of stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So Porsche goes into the 2019 Intercontinental GT Challenge, last race of the season. They were down 22-ish points to Mercedes in that race. So we ended up winning that race because we took podium on that. It's a 9-hour race in Kalimi. I probably mispronounced that. I don't care, but it's in South Africa. Correct me. I don't know how you're going to correct me unless you send me a voice message or something, or you send me the little how to... when you type it into Google thing, where it says like, oh, pronounce like this. So
the phonetics.
You get the point. As most of you know, I would hope you know, if you're a Porsche fan and you're listening to this, Porsche won the overall championship as well in IMSA racing. So they won the Intercontinental GT Challenge as well. I mean,
they're clean sweeping it. That's what they're doing.
Apparently it's just, global dominance as usual.
Now they're just building new rooms for holding trophies.
It's just one thing after another. It's just winning. Oh, by the way, they won here. By the way, they won here. By the way, they won here. It's interesting, needless to say. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, of global dominance of winning? Are you surprised by that? And then, actually, before you say that, I'll make a quick note on this because the Formula E season started and Porsche podiumed there as well. They didn't win, but they took second.
Okay, I saw that.
And this is their first season in Formula E, and they podiumed in the first race. So is that shocking? No.
No, with all the testing they do. You know what? I'm surprised that this doesn't. I mean, maybe it does get talked about more than IMSA, or just because IMSA is so local to us that we watch that more. We get to enjoy the races, but I really don't follow the Intercontinental GT as much. And I know I did. I mean, I see it because I watched the. I can't remember his name. Yeah, he's the motorsport director, and he posts everything on Instagram. So I saw the win. Yeah, but I was like, oh, okay. Well, they're still racing, but I didn't know what series it was. I think that's cool that they're trying to dominate everywhere.
Well, yeah, I think the really interesting thing, or at least my biggest takeaway from it, is because it costs money to go racing, but yet there's so many other brands that are very, very selective of what series they're going to enter or where they're going to place their dollars, or if it doesn't have enough spotlight, they're not going to be involved in it. And you made a good point. You're like, I wasn't even sure what series it was that they won. But this just shows you how serious they take racing, because if there's something there, they want to win it. They want to pee on it, so they want it to be theirs. Yeah. So,
I mean, it's good though too, because how else are you going to know that your product's that good if you're not entering it in anything and everything you could?
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And you would think almost kind of it's interesting because there's a lot of brands that sell, and I won't mention them, that sell a ton of other cars. It sell a lot of cars that don't go racing and don't do all these things because racing's not that important to them.
Or it doesn't make money. I mean, honestly, that's probably the bigger thing. They're just looking at it, well, that's mass market. I'm doing that, but I'm not going racing because I don't see a benefit in it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it won't swing people whether they're going to buy their cars or not, whether they go racing or not, right? Yeah. So I think it's interesting in the sense Porsche has always been involved at that level in as many races as they can. I mean, think about it, even from like they ran rally races, they ran Dakar races. Yeah. It's whatever they can get their hands on to almost kind of prove that it doesn't matter if it's
bring the environment. It doesn't
matter what the terrain is. Tell us what the qualifications are, and we'll be there.
Yeah,
like we'll make the car to do it.
Exactly.
And I just thought that was a nice tidbit, so I just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. So let's segue into a more, I guess, meatier topic: G-body cars in general. So our good friends over at Jalopnik, I like to say that instead of like jalapeno, Jalopnik instead of Jalopnik, wrote an article just recently. Yeah, trying to church it up, boy. They're just recently wrote an article regarding a Targa that sold on BAT for $25,800. It was a pretty clean car. G-body car, had a good records, no accidents, no rust. They wrote kind of almost an open-ended question, a rhetorical question: is the market cooling off? We kind of discussed this a few months ago. Not claiming that we're the end all know all, but we have a pretty good pulse on the market. We kind of saw this months ago, and we even talked about it at the beginning of the year. The market in the whole, like we were seeing GT2 RSs, brand new ones, where everybody thought they were going to pay sticker. Somebody actually paid like lost money on one.
Yeah.
Like at $325, and I don't think you couldn't even MSRP one for that. So it's kind of that, and that started at Amelia Island. So it's been, here we are in November. Well, actually, when you listen to this, it's going to be December. So it's already trending, and it's kind of coming full circle. And you know, their thoughts is they think it is still cooling. There's still stuff to go out there.
Well, the special, like we said, the special stuff is the special stuff. With the pedigrees, the histories, the documentation. That's the stuff that was sought out. That's the stuff that brought heavy dollars. So all the normal stuff is probably getting to be where it should be.
Yeah.
Probably settling down to where it makes sense again.
And to support what you're saying, my belief behind it is as well is everybody has one that really could afford one. And all these people that were coming maybe out of the woodwork have had maybe owned these cars for a long time. You guys know what I'm talking about. Like, owner for the last 20 years, and they're finally ready to offload the car, but they're late to market. They're like, I want to sell my car now. It's like, well, you should have sold it 5 years ago if you really wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But they weren't ready at that time, you know, because they still love the car. Whatever reason, their life wasn't allowing them to sell the car, whatever it is. And supporting what you're saying, I think all the blue chip cars, I don't think they're all gone, but even back then, even the blue chip cars, even to this day, they're trading hands. They're not going on BAT. I mean, not to take anything away from BAT, but we know guys that are like very high-end brokers that don't advertise themselves as brokers, but also know if you want a blue chip car, they know where you can get one because they know the person who has it. And everything has a price, and it's not for sale, but it's for sale if you want to change hands. We've talked about this behind the scenes a long, long time. We're not those type of people. We happen to know people like that. We're not buyers in that market or sellers in that market. But those type of transactions, if you're listening and not sure of that happens a lot. Yeah. You're like, oh my God, how did that guy get a PTS 1976 930? Because he's got FU money. That's why. And he just bought it has 2,800 miles on it. It's a collector piece. It's not a driver piece.
And just when you think you've seen all the PTS or the exclusive stuff, there's people out there with stuff that blow your mind. I mean, even
we've seen it firsthand.
Yeah, off the topic of G bodies, but on the topic of marketing, I mean, Matt Morgan picked up his .2 for 20 under.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, that shows you there that really all levels.
Well, I feel like that's a whole nother topic, but I feel like that market's really flooded, like the newer GT market. I mean, you can go on right now, just go onto eBay and look at how many non-RS but newer GT3s are for sale. Yeah. A gazillion of them. I know. I did. So
recently.
But I'm going to reel you back in. We'll go back on these G-body thing, what Halopnik was talking about on this. I agree with them, but my theory, the reason is, I think, and all the people that were maybe not Porsche people that were getting into air-cooled market because they thought it was hot, the hot thing to do, and I'm going to get this. And I'll be totally honest with you, and you got everybody who's listening, if you've never been in an air-cooled car, I highly encourage it. But they're not going to blow you away with performance. They're not going to blow you away with all these things. And if you're not really into it and you're buying it because you think, oh, well, this is safe money, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to turn it around and make money or whatever, or flip it, whatever. My point is if your heart's not in it and you buy it, you end up kind of being underwhelmed.
Yeah. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's a car. And I mean, it's at a base performance. It's not at a race car level.
Exactly. And if you're buying a driver quality car, it probably is going to need some stuff too. You're probably going to need to do some mechanical stuff. So now it's kind of souring your buying experience because you're like, wow, I just dropped 60 and I got to drop another 10, and the car, my Honda Civic's faster than that. Yeah. And that's unfortunate. I don't think that way, but I'm saying that conversation happens where when their heart's not in the car. And I think that's kind of what really happened with a lot of this stuff. And I feel like a lot of the enthusiasts kind of pulled the reins back, myself included. Thank God I bought my car when I did. But I'm sure there's a lot of people out there right now too. They're like, I would never pay that for that. They'll come back down. I'm not worried about it because you're still going to want the car. And we talked about this before offline, even with newer cars where people are like, oh, well, you need to pay over to get in like this. And you're like, well, I don't care because I still want the car. So I'm not going to pay over. I'll let somebody else be a first or second owner on it. I'll be a third owner. Let the hit happen. Let the depreciation happen, because in 3 or 4 years, if you still want the car, you're still going to want the car.
Yeah, you're going to have the same enjoyment 3 years later than you would have if you'd bought it.
Exactly. And if you didn't want the car anymore, then guess what? You just saved your ass, because you shouldn't have bought the car anyways then.
That's true.
Because it was just a knee-jerk reaction. I almost kind of feel that, even though this is this is different because they're used cars and they're very old, I almost feel like the same reaction. If you lust after one, just did lust because it's a knee-jerk reaction, and everybody that you know has one, and
just,
oh my God. And
just
then,
getting a 911 because it's a 911.
Exactly.
And that was it. And then you're like, well, maybe I don't like the accordion bumpers. Maybe I don't like how fast it is.
Exactly. You're like, I don't like the quirkiness of the 915. You start just naming stuff. You're like, I didn't realize that every single one of them leaks oil. Well, that's part of the deal. And I think a lot of those buyers, where I'm reeling this in, I'm circling it in here. A lot of these buyers, I think, are either out of the market or trying to get out of the market. And a lot of us enthusiasts are sitting around like, guess what? I know you paid an ass load for that car, and I am not giving you an ass load for it. So I'm going to let you wither away and be unhappy with that car for a while until you're ready to sell it at a normal price.
Until it's away, until you need to get it out of the garage.
Yeah, until they get desperate and they're just like, I'm going to move on it. And I think everybody kind of pulled the reins back too. Even, I don't know if it's a value buyer or whatever. I think it's, again, who were we talking to? Was it Wes? I think it was Wes when we were at the Rolex 24. It is the worst business to be in as far as trying to make money, as from a personal standpoint, not doing it for a living, meaning, I'm going to buy a 911 and I'm not going to lose money. I'm going to make money on it. You should never approach anything like that. That's not the way you should purchase this car. You should buy the car because you love that car. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, this Targa sold for $25,800 on BAT. If you're a Targa guy, it was an 80-something Targa, and then you wanted this car all your life, that's a steal, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying even that car at $35,000 is probably a good price. You're not buying it because you're like, I'm going to make money on this someday.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, is what do you think in this G-body era that's still worth its money? I mean, is there anything you would look at?
You mean
to hold its value? I mean, obviously all of it's going down.
Yeah, I think there's things that always hold value, and it goes back to that blue chip stuff. I mean, if I take myself, for example, what I can afford, if I was going to buy a G-body car, I would really try to sneak a G-body car that maybe had some like PTS to it, because there wasn't that many of them. Like, I saw one not too long ago. It was like a bamboo beige. It went up, an SC.
That's cool.
And it was actually pretty reasonable. It wasn't clapped out or anything. I think the guy wanted like $35,000, $36,000 for it.
Was it on brown interior?
Yeah, it had like a chocolate interior.
That's cool.
Yeah. So if I would, and you know me, I'm not in love with a G-body car. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just not a crash bumper kind of guy.
Yeah.
I like pre-crash bumper and I like post-crash bumper.
Anything before and after.
Yeah. But I think if I was going after one, and I do like them, don't get me wrong. It's not like, I would never drive one. I do like them. But for me, I almost kind of feel like I couldn't drive the normal pallet wheel in a G-body car. I almost kind of feel like it has to have a little bit of taste to it to kind of like make it okay for me. Yeah. And that's just me personally. I don't. And if I had to have a regular color, I call it regular color. I think if I went with a regular color G-body car, it'd probably be a silver car, just because that silver is timeless. Like a GT silver or something like that. But other than that, I'd be hunting like and it doesn't even have to be like super, super PTS. I'm not talking about like something off the wall, like, oh my God, they made a ruby stone red G-body. Not like that. Something just different. Almost, it's an Arctic blue, or it's
I'm definitely
just something that's got a little bit different flair, just something a little funkier. It's like, that's a oak green, or what's that?
Would you do a Targa?
Yeah, I mean, they're growing on me as the older I get too. I see
they're cheaper than the newer Targas.
Yeah, I still think they're cool in their own right. I mean, it's an original Targa. I mean, the Targa top actually comes off. Yeah. It looks a little funky, but I guess I can say that because it wouldn't be if it was my only 911, I don't think I'd be happy with just a Targa. But as a second or third, I would say, yeah, probably.
No big deal.
And here's another thing I think about this particular, and it could just be an outlier, this particular car we're discussing. But I do think overall, my theory behind that is I do think they're actually going down in price. However, as we all know, selling a car during this time of the year, all the way leading up until basically March, there's a certain type of premium that's going to be taken off because most people that are going to buy these cars aren't going to be able to drive them really.
Yeah, the rest of the country doesn't get to drive.
Yeah, I mean,
long.
barring 5 states, essentially, most people aren't going to go out there and rip around in these cars, 6, 7 states, whatever, in the U.S. at least. So most people are tucking their cars away. And this, if you're a seller, I would say hang on to your car till spring because this is the worst. Yeah. This is the worst time to try to sell a car to somebody because they're going to like, well, I'm not even going to be able to drive it. I can't even test it. They make all these excuses, but you get the point. Sports cars just don't do well in the winter. That's just the stereotype behind it. And unfortunately, even though it's not really a stereotype because it's kind of true. You see cars go for a lot less in the winter than you do in the summer or in the spring because people are like, oh, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to drive it and do this and do that. And so unless you're buying a project car and you build it through the winter and then it's ready to go in spring, I think that could have had a factor with this car too. That's just a inside thought that I had with it. I know we kind of discussed why it's cooling when we first thought it was cooling, all that. Do you think there's still more room, or are we going to stabilize here?
I feel like that's like the base number. I can't see it really going past or lower than the mid-20s.
I don't ever see these things in the teens again. No. I mean, I think they already made their adjustment, right?
Yeah, I think mid-20s and up is the market now.
Yeah, with that being said, I think if it's a clean car, and we're just talking G-bodies at this point, if it's a clean G-body car, and we'll just talk Carrera, and we'll talk the 3.2 Carrera, not even like mid-year car or whatever, because they have their own little following at the moment. If it's a G-body car, and I think it's between 25 and 35, I think that's still a good price for one. As long as the history and the documents there, and it's not clapped out and doesn't have a lot of rust or any rust. Like this one's claiming no rust and no accidents. I mean, that's a hell of a deal. I mean, at that price, I'd probably buy a Targa at that price. I think I saw even cheaper than this listed. I don't remember. I'm not buying the car, but I don't remember exactly where. I'm not trying to be hiding it because I found it because, everybody does the whole searching thing. But it was a ice green metallic Targa.
Ice green.
Yeah.
Ever since seeing Magnus's turbo.
Yeah, this is a SC car. So it's like a 78 Targa, but it was clean. It has like really nice Fuchs. Somebody put some money in it. It had some Elephant Racing parts on it. Came with 2 tails. It had the slick back tail, and then for whatever reason, it had like a Carrera, like an early 930 tail on it at the time. But the point of this is the car was for sale, asking $24,900, and had great records. Pictures are good.
On the ice cream metallic.
That's what I'm thinking. When I saw that car, I was like, I'm not a huge I would buy it just because of that. And that's when you asked me earlier, what would you buy? That car, because it's ice green metallic. It's not like a super PTS color, but they just didn't make a lot of them in that color. And I'm a big color person. I like that. That's cool. And I could rock that that Targa because of that, because it's ice cream metallic.
Not just kicking in.
Exactly. Well, I said turbo tail, so I'm already like thinking about that. But prime example, I mean, that's $1,000 difference between this and that. But for example, this car that I'm talking about is 25.8. It was silver. The ice cream metallic was 24.9. Granted, this was a Carrera. The other one was an SC, or pre-SC, I should say. But you get the point.
Yeah, still some coolness to be had out there.
Yeah, you're not going to go out there and... That's one of those... It looks... And the paint was really nice. It was one of those where you go have fun. You can drive it spiritedly, but you're not going to go try to put down like nasty lap times in it. I mean, let's just be real. Like most of us aren't doing that anyways.
That's true. And it's going to be a great quality daily.
Yeah. And not even it being a day, it's just a fun weekend car.
That's what I meant.
It's just a fun weekend car. You could do some little stuff to it. Maybe put a Wevo in it, do little things, put a nice little different exhaust, do your own little touches, maybe put some inserts on the seats. And that's a juicy car. It's a sexy color, and you're driving it, and it's got a lot of nostalgia. It makes all the right air-cooled noises.
At
$25,000, I mean, you need to buy that damn car. I'll send it to you after this thing.
Okay, I'm down.
Yeah, quit screwing around, man. You get in the air-cooled game. But anyways, So is it still cooling? Final answer is I still think there's a little bit room to cool, but not much. I think we're stabilizing. I think everybody who has one wants one. I think there's still some outliers that people are charging an ass load of money, and that's why they still have the cars, because people at this point are just not letting it happen. They're like, you're on your own. I'm not buying that shit. So feel the same way?
I do. I feel like everything's been got that needs to be got.
Yeah. And a great person who's, trades at a high level with those kind of cars, and they made a great point. The blue chip cars are always going to be the blue chip cars, regardless of the cooling market or anything like that, because those guys that have those cars, they're not going to unload them in a shit market. So, and those cars are always going to bring strong money regardless. You're never going to be able to use the market as leverage on a car like that.
No.
You're not going to walk in and, for example, like you brought up Magnus, you're not going to walk in and there's a 930 turbo with factory tartan seats that's ice green metallic that maybe has under 30,000 miles and think that you're going to be like, well, it's a soft market right now. I'm not going to pay you $200 for that car. It's like, get out then. That's nice. That's the answer. It's not like, okay, let's work on it. It's like, leave, because I don't need to sell you this car, because this is kind of like a one of good luck.
Yeah. You see it and you're never seeing it again. Exactly.
And I think people in that arena and those kind of buyers, they already know that stuff. So anyways, you beat that dead horse. Let's move on. So off-road world, obviously Safari, we have Lee King making Safari cars. Kelly Moss makes some Safari stuff. There's a couple of them out there.
A few people.
Yeah. Mark White at Akimoto's making some stuff. So TJ Russell, he's built a beautiful Baja style 911, debuted at SEMA.
Yeah.
You've seen some pictures of this car. I mean, I'll fill in all this stuff. What are your thoughts on this car? I've been talking my head off. Let's hear what you have to say about it for a little bit.
I think it being a Baja style is a little different. I guess that's a little a different take on it than it just being a Safari car. Looks are good. I know that it doesn't do the same thing that the Safari car does for me. I think it's a little, I think it's too far to the dialed up one way for me. I think a little step back would be, but I get that it's for a different purpose.
Yeah, it's a Baja car. Yeah. I mean, it's different, totally different. This isn't recreational driving.
No, it's made to go miles and sands.
So, I mean, I like the car. So I'll give you some stats on it. Okay. As far as the car goes. I don't know if you know this, but the car, if you guys haven't seen, it's all over the internet. If you're listening to this, it's basically a white car. It's a Baja car. It's been stretched 14 inches because it's a Baja car. Yep. It has a ton of travel. I mean, this thing is made to jump over mountains and crap, basically, to run the Baja. I think that one of the more interesting things about this car, when I did my research on it, that I found is it was originally a cab.
Oh.
Yeah. And I saw some stuff that TJ said in regards to that, is one of the main reasons why was price. Obviously, he wanted to do a build and didn't want to pay over just a Baja car and pay a crap ton of money just a Baja something. Secondly, he made a really good point that I never thought about from a builder perspective. It was so much easier for him to put a full roll cage in.
Oh yeah, because you don't. Yeah.
So he wasn't trying to work inside the car to make this roll cage. He could build it outside of the car and then put it in, and then put the roof on.
That's cool.
So that's what he ended up doing. Don't get me wrong. This thing is still not a cab now. It's a coupe, but he welded in the coupe after that instead of chopping a coupe and then doing that. And he probably wouldn't have done that. He would have had to work inside the confines of it, which would have been a pain. So it actually worked out well for him. I thought that was really interesting because he was talking about structural rigidity a little bit when he said it. And he's like, the odd part about this is everybody's like, oh, I made one of the most structurally sound cars out of a cab.
I guess you have that opportunity the way you described putting it in the cage, because now you can have all those points to attach it to versus.
Yeah, and it has to be because, I mean, this car's doing so much flexing and doing so much stuff, so he's putting it to the test. The motor's totally built. It's got 365 horsepower. This is a nuts and bolt build, full. This isn't a pretend Baja thing. It could definitely probably go out and kick some ass in the Baja now.
Hopefully they do run it or get in some type of maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the ultimate, this was a show of basically his craftsmanship and what TJ can do. I think that was the purpose behind this. I don't think he's at a level of wanting to compete. It's not like it's a purpose built car, but it wasn't.
I think it'd be cool.
It wasn't purpose. Obviously, for the period. I think it would have done well if it was in the 80s. Obviously, the Baja stuff that exists nowadays is ridiculous. Like, there's no sense in it.
There's a car around here that's like full out race car. That's a cab.
Uh-huh.
I'll show it to you after this, because now you're gonna be thinking. I was like, well, he started with that.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just build a Baja car for Florida.
Maybe. But great build. Congratulations to him for showing that off. It got a lot of attention at SEMA, rightfully so, because it is an amazing car, and I think it took him a little over 2 years to go ahead and do this build, and the attention to detail on this thing is absolutely immaculate. And if you're one of those guys that has FU money out there, maybe make him an offer and you can have something super special, because it's
just white.
Yeah, it's one of one. So I'm sure you're going to be pulling out the bank account dollars on that one, though. It's probably heavy duty money. I don't blame him, because if you just do the math on how long he probably worked on it for with just the hours alone, I mean, you're talking a couple $100,000 right there.
Easy.
Fabrication. And that's not even the price of the parts in the car. So great job, TJ. Let's talk a little bit about this, and then we'll go on break. This month's giveaway is basically twofold.
Yeah.
Stephanie Ray, she's an artist. Look her up on Instagram, oddly artistic, oddly_artistic.
Correct.
She's based out of Atlanta, Georgia. She gave us one of her prints she painted a Brumos painting, and she gave us the very first print from that. So she signed it and dashed it. That's going out to a lucky club member in December. Mm-hmm. And because it's Porsche Claus month, we're giving away another thing from Suncoast Porsche Parts. They've donated a 911 GT3 RS Wysock package model, basically $500, like the really, really expensive ones you always see at the dealerships.
It's 800 something of them.
Yeah, there's only a couple hundred of them or whatever, and it's got its number of what it is. And that'll also be going to a member. So there'll be two winners in basically December, because it's Christmas. Why not participate? And so our lucky members that are already members that are going to get something. And if you're not a member, go ahead and get on there. Make sure that you join. You won't only also win becoming a member, you're eligible for so many other things. And if you read which member you select, what membership you select, it tells you exactly what you're going to end up getting with your membership, right?
It's not just a little decal and then you're done.
Exactly. So where do they need to do that? Like, tell the folks where they need to do, like, sign up to become a member.
PCarTalk.com.
Okay.
And then it's under PCar Club.
Okay, that's simple, right?
Super easy.
Yeah, no firewall for you. You don't have to jump through hoops. There's no retina scan.
No, not
You just
yet.
make it happen. Be a badass, be a Porsche enthusiast, like the other ones that we all called out on the other ones. And we'll do another thank you round after we get some more members. Those are all the most recent ones. And again, as a reminder, there's going to be a club drive, and you can only be a part of the club drive if you're a club member, obviously. Funny how that works, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's going to be a weekend basically for the members, for us all to get together. It's going to be super cash, but it's going to be a lot of driving. There's going to be a lot of things going on as well. Like, we might do some clay shooting, see what we can do, see what the consensus is. In addition to that, we have our monthly club meets, as far as like virtually, and you'll be able to discuss your opinions on that as far as what you want to see at that event. And that's where we announce our winners as well. But again, PCarTalk.com, PCar Club. Let's go on break. And when we come back from break, we'll talk about some more stuff. Thank you guys listening to PCar Talk so much. We appreciate you guys so much. I can't say that enough. Also, check us out on YouTube. We release videos on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Help support the channel. Everything we're doing is trying to bring the community closer together. We definitely appreciate that. Also, when you go onto YouTube, if you could subscribe, maybe pass it along, make a comment, we really appreciate that. Again, circling back to pcartalk.com, there is a newsletter created on there. Please put your information in there. That way we can keep you up to date on anything that's coming forward and anything that we're going to be doing moving forward, and all the exciting things that are coming out. Now back to the show. We're back from break, and we're going to talk a little bit about Porsche junior driver. Educate you guys a little bit on this. May sound redundant for some of you guys that maybe know what this is, but maybe not, because I wasn't well versed. I knew it existed, but I didn't know the depth of it, how it kind of works. So basically, they find 12 candidates. They have to vet them, obviously, to even get to the 12 to begin with. And then these 12, basically the best young talent in the world, start to drive against each other. Some of the criteria, I'm just going to label the big one. You got to be under 23 to be even part of the 12.
Need some longevity out of you, I guess.
Exactly. Well, you know how it is. I mean, look,
Endurance.
you got Formula One drivers and Formula E drivers starting at like actually in the car competing at 19 years old. So So it's a young man's game. So basically what this junior driver program is if you follow sports or if you don't follow sports, it's almost like their farm team.
Yeah.
So they grow them within the brand. They grow them with how they want them to race, the things that they want at a younger level, and see how they can basically work their way into a factory driver and be actually on the team where they're competing at the EMSA level.
Like a junior varsity and varsity level.
Kind of, yeah. It's a good way to put it. Kind of like that. So essentially, and we're giving you the very, very Cliff Note version of this. Obviously, it goes way deeper than that. So needless to say, one of the bigger, things that come out of this is Earl Bamberg came out of this program.
Okay.
And he won the 24-hour Le Mans. So he was in the program for 22 years as a junior driver, and then was upgraded and he won Le Mans. So obviously,
they're doing some.
It's working. And Porsche's not unique in the sense, like there's a lot of junior driver programs within a lot of the race teams. I'm not saying that, they're so unique, but clearly just because you have a program, that's just like, hey, I have a restaurant. That doesn't mean it's the best restaurant out there.
It's true.
So obviously their program exists, but with the learning and the learning curve that's happening within that, is outstanding. It's produced obviously Le Mans winner, which is the biggest stage in the world. So that's where you want to win. If you're, and I'm sure many of you have heard or watched Ford versus Factory. It's really from a car manufacturing standpoint, it's really the only race that matters in the world. If you win that race, it puts you on the map. Even to this day, I mean, it's not the same fact as it used to be, as win on Sunday, sell on Monday type of deal, but there still is that feel.
Because I really think that's because Europe respects it along with us respecting it as the U.S. for it being around for such a long.
Yeah, I mean, it's a prominent race. I mean, it's back when auto racing, before they made the turn, and then we're going to go off on a tangent here, but the reason why I bring this up, let me close this and then we'll go on that tangent. Basically, the reason why I bring that up is because they're compiling the data right now to select their number one. They just finished that out this past week. So they'll be announcing who the actual junior driver is, who they've selected in the program. So that's why that's a big deal.
And then, so they'll be on one of their teams. And
exactly. They'll be working on the team. They'll be racing on the teams, working their way up. You'll see them at events. You'll see a new name in there. Like usually this person gets seat time at certain events, and that's part of what that program is, to groom them into an intricate part of the team essentially. But yeah, going back to that, auto racing, and anybody who watches these documentaries, I'm a big history buff, but if you've watched stuff even prior to the Ford versus Ferrari, a great one to watch is the 24-hour War that Adam Carolla helped produce and direct.
Media. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Chassis Media. I think it's actually on Netflix right now for free or something like that if you guys haven't seen it. But if you've seen it before, it's a great flick. It's a great watch, a second watch. But anyways, the point behind this is not even just endurance racing as whole, but even if you want to take it anything like dirt car racing and NASCAR racing, before Dale Earnhardt died, Senna died, like these guys, before all of this safety stuff, there was, back in the day when Ford versus Ferrari was happening, it was not uncommon for somebody to die at every race. I'll say that again. It was not uncommon. Like now, if somebody even dies in an entire season, people are like shell shocked from it.
It's like, whoa.
Because that's from what safety has done for these guys. So really at these points, Ken Miles, he died in testing, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
So it's come a long way, but it's still a very, very dangerous sport in the sense.
It's gotten so much faster.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are pretty complacent, myself included, because we go to racetracks and these guys are such good racers, and not saying the guys weren't back in the day, but the cars are so much better. The compound on the tires are so much better. These guys were racing back in the day, and track prep didn't exist, and there was debris, and it was like the Wild West, like
cowboying up.
Exactly. Even look at like the Group B racing crap. Like there's people in the road, like trying to like see how long they can wait before they get ran over by the car and jump out of the way. It was mayhem back in the day, essentially.
I can imagine.
And how I'm tying this in is that these young drivers nowadays, and I'm not saying it in a negative way, like they don't know what that was like. Like all these old timers, like the Garrick Bells and these guys who raced in these cars, he's like, oh, I went 270 something miles on the, the Mulsanne Strait. And he's like, if I blinked, I'd be dead before I even knew it. And nowadays it doesn't even, I'm not saying there's not fear of life. There is, but you're so protected nowadays. And fortunately so, like, we don't want to obviously be losing racers every race. Well, that's ridiculous.
You can't make a sport. It wouldn't be a sport eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And thank God for the safety and stuff like that. And I guess the point of that is because, like, Ford and, the Ford versus Ferrari movies out, that kind of nostalgic racing. We went to HSR. That's all kind of in my head. Now we're talking about a driver racer program. That's why I found it relevant in my head to talk about. I just thought it's an interesting evolution of where we are now. And and we've talked offline about this, and not to name them by name, but there's a lot of, I don't want to call them young, but not old guys that aren't racing anymore, that used to race for factory teams, that still could go out there and race now, but they're wild cards, and they are old school racers because they grew up in a race family, and they just can't, I don't want to say can't because I don't know them personally in the sense, it's just the way that they operate and the way that the factory teams want you to operate don't mix well.
They're not trying to conform to anybody.
Exactly. They're like, look, we're here to win races. I'm not here to, you're going to give me a hard time about that last millisecond. And I think for a seasoned person, I think that is a challenging. So being so involved in the motorsport area that we are, and getting to spend a lot of time with these guys, I think there's a lot of people that maybe be listening out there don't realize that it's not about just how fast you are. It's about being able to manage your mental strength with what they're trying to do from an engineering standpoint of, like, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, and not get frustrated with it.
And be hitting the same. We need to hit you this corner needs to be the exact same way every time.
It's almost like militaristic, right?
Yeah.
Like, they want you to do what they want you to do and not talk back, and just do it. And that's it. Yeah. Like, you don't need an opinion. If I ask for your opinion, I want you to if I ask you how the car feels, then I'll ask you. But don't tell me what's going on. I need you to lay these lap times down. Yep. Get out of here. And I think it's easier to maybe do that when you have somebody young like this. When you have somebody who's so hungry, that's maybe 19 years old, and they're like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I just want to be in the car. And you're going to pay for me to go race.
And again, it's those things where nothing has to be unlearned at that point either. There's no bad habits.
Yeah. Same reason why the military is so deterrent of not letting people that are like 30 years old go to basic training as somebody who's 18 years old, because you're not as impressionable. You already have your own opinions. When I bark at you and you tell you to do something and you're 30-something years old, you're going to laugh at me. When you're 18, you're going to cower and do what I want you to do. So you're moldable. So anyways, I know we kind of went off on a tangent, but I kind of wanted to talk about that for a little bit. Next topic. Interesting thing that Porsche did. They did a little Q&A interview with not a personal friend, but I follow her on Instagram, and I have for a long time. Very, very cool story. Sera Tremble, she is a stunt driver in LA. She has been for a while. She's a big Porsche enthusiast. She's got a G-body. It's been very modified.
Speaking of G-bodies.
Yeah, exactly. All modded and to her own taste. And to be honest with you, I have a lot of her same taste. That's one of the reasons why I started following her a few years ago, because when I saw her G-body car, I was like, oh, that's a really cool build. And that's how I started following her. And I kind of knew her from that part where I would see her stunt driving. And she's in high demand in LA. She does a lot of the driving for like all types of stuff. I was thinking,
I hope she was helping out with the Bad Boys movie. That'd been cool.
Yeah, I don't know if it was at that degree, but it would have been great. I mean, I know she's involved in a lot of things. Like, she's a very petite woman, so I think they use her. I remember her quoting something that, when you see those Subaru commercials with the dogs and stuff like that, she's actually like cowering down and driving the car.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, that's how that stuff gets done, guys. That's not CGI. So it's like somebody's still driving the car and stuff like that, but she can't see anything. But anyways, like, she does all types of gamuts of stuff. She's in movies, she does everything. So she's a big time stunt driver. And why I'm bringing this up is because Porsche recently released a Q&A article on their website where they recognized her, being in the industry as far as like driving. And they did a really nice Q&A write-up of questions that they asked her. How did she get into stunt driving? Why she likes Porsche and things like that. I don't want to dilute what they did. So I want to encourage actually people to go like to their website and actually read about her. Follow her on Instagram. Like I said, I have been for a while. I just wanted to say congratulations to her for the opportunity for that, for Porsche as a brand to recognize her. And solely because not that she does stunt driving and necessarily for Porsche. She's just a Porsche enthusiast. Like that's her car. She drives for a living, meaning in the stunts,
And that's her choice.
but her choice of car is Porsche outside of for her personal use. And I think that's really cool and says a lot about Porsche as a brand. And then it says a lot about them to recognize her as well and do a really nice write-up. I think they did her justice, and I got to know a little bit more about her. Like I said, I don't know her personally, but I follow her on social media.
So a little bit about did she grow up with Porsches? That's my only question. I don't know.
I don't think that she did. Like when I was reading it, I don't recall that, but it's a very, very interesting story. It's a humbling story because she's worked her ass off all her life to be in a position that she's in. And it goes back to that thing that we talk about of no one's an overnight sensation.
Yeah.
I mean, not saying no one. There are people like that are musicians that have a song, maybe it blows up and then there's somebody, but it's so far and few between. This is years and years and years and years of work that she's put in to be in the position that she's in for her career-wise, stunt driving-wise. This was just a nice little, I don't know, an icing on the cake. This wasn't something that, I mean, it might help her, as far as her career goes, but this was her passion. Just she's passionate about Porsche.
That's pretty cool.
So, and I think and it goes back to, like, I know I already said it, but it reflects of like Porsche starting to recognize that kind of stuff, like the enthusiasts and telling personal stories about.
I think that's cool.
I think it's really nice of Porsche to kind of tap into that.
Yeah, I think it's very good of them to realize that. Well, I mean, it's different generations too, about bringing that together, and then it's not only just going, oh, we have new cars. Well, here's what somebody's doing with our old stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And almost kind of to look at it like, look, she drives for a living, but in a different way. She's not a race car driver. She's a stunt car driver. And she has different qualifications, and she knows what she needs to do with the car to manipulate it to do certain scenes. But yet at the end of the day, when she has to get into something to drive home, she chooses Porsche.
Yep.
Which is super cool. So well-deserved. And I think you guys should definitely check that out. So that was the whole purpose of that. I just kind of wanted to give that a shout out, give her a big shout out. And kudos for women kicking ass in Porsche. And I think, honestly, our friend John Esposito, his daughter is doing the women in Porsche thing, and we would definitely want to work with her and get her on the show eventually. And I think it's great to see the female gender as well, like, stand up, and it's not just a man thing. It's not just, oh, this is only for the boys, we can only go do this. Like, I really can appreciate that women that want to go racing, or even that are just enthusiasts in general about cars, and it doesn't have to be Porsche, but just in motorworks in general. And even if you didn't grow up, you don't have to have the pedigree of like, well, my dad owned a shop and that's why I did it. Even if you just like cars in general and your father wouldn't teach you anything, but you still love machinery, there's people like that out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm cut from that cloth. My dad wasn't a big car anything guy. Like, he had practical cars because he was a practical dude, but for some reason, I always had that DNA from me. I didn't get it from an uncle. I didn't get it from an older brother. Like, I was the firstborn, but like I said before, I think I got it from being in the 80s and playing with Matchbox cars, and it kind of just grew from that. So,
yeah. What else are you going to do in the 80s?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Ride your big wheel around. Grow a mullet, right? Eat popsicles. Whatever you did back then. That's what we all did. Watch Scooby-Doo. Anyways, so I just wanted to give a shout out to her. I think that was really awesome. Definitely go check that out. That's on Porsche's website, if in their newsroom.
Okay.
A great read. And again, it's a Q&A style, which I kind of like. So it lets you get to know her a little bit more. And it also shows pictures of her car, which is outstanding. Her car's awesome. Guards red, fire, like usual. So transitioning. I know we've talked about it a lot before on many episodes, but a little bit of different take on this. So Taycan.
What's that?
Yeah, exactly. What's a Taycan? I don't know. What is it? It's like a guy named Ty that can do something.
He can do all things.
He can do it all. But in all seriousness, as we were in Daytona for the HSR race, we were getting text messages from people that were back in Tampa that were seeing Taycans out on the road in the wild. Remember, Mike sent us that one picture, and he's not first to market with that. I mean, that's happening all over the U.S. essentially, because there's press cars that are showing up, and people are doing press stuff with it. Matt's doing stuff out in California. Our friend Vinny drove it, said it was an amazing car. Where I'm going with this is, why do you think this is happening? I mean, not in the sense of the press cars, But why do you think they're just kind of showing up in cities and being like just driven around in general? What are your thoughts and theories behind that?
I think that's where they think the buyers are at.
So if you're seeing one in your city, you think that?
I think that's where they think that that's where the market research says, yep, they're here,
They're going to sell here.
Yep, that type of thing. And they still, even though it's performance based, it's still, they still have, I think all the hybrid or fully electric still has that kind of commuter car-esque to it. At least that's just in my mind. But maybe that's where they really see it. And then too, that supports the going green and stuff in the bigger cities, getting some of that pollution out, that type of thing. And I think it resonates with a lot of people in that style. That's where I would go with it.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way. I was looking at it on the opposite way. So like my thoughts and theories behind it were because of the people that we get to speak to, the allocation delivery dates are still far off. So my thoughts and theories behind that is they're trying to keep people interested still. They're trying to keep people that have a deposit saying, hey, I know it's going to be another year and some change before I get my car. Maybe I'll bring one to your city and you can play with it for a little bit.
Want to drive this around? This is what it'll be like when you get one.
Exactly.
Yeah,
or I'm going to cart you around and this is what it looks like. Or even if I don't take you out and you don't have an allocation, I'm going to tease it because I'm going to be in your city. Or like, I almost wonder if it's kind of like a show of force of like, hey, don't forget about us. We're still here. And I know it's hard to forget about. I meant from, granted, they're all over social media with it. They're doing a great job on that, and including us because we're talking about it, obviously. Yep. So, but I meant like actually physically present. I think the reason for that is to keep that interest up. That's what I think. Yep. Because there's such a long delivery point before this happens. I mean, these aren't getting delivered next year. They're talking like spring 2021. So we're still that far.
I don't think I knew that was that far. I thought it was.
I think that's what Chris said.
Yeah,
And actually, the last time we talked to Chris over the summer, they didn't even have a delivery date. They were guessing that's when it's going to happen. Now, I can't speak for the European market. Like, we're not involved in that.
They probably already have them.
Exactly. You guys are probably taking delivery as we speak because that's just what happens. So, but in all seriousness, I think that's the reason why they're doing it. I think it's to continue to bridge the interest.
Campaign still.
I mean, all the stuff they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, it goes back to that stuff we talked about, like with the whole 24-hour test with it. Yep. And kudos for them for this, because maybe they saw the end result to say, like, look, we're not going to be able to deliver these cars for a while, but we have 150 press cars. Like, let's circulate these cars and let everybody in the press get their hands on this thing to continue to pump energy into this, to keep pumping basically interest into this thing.
Didn't they unveil? I don't think unveiling is the right word. They showed it again at the LA Auto Show recently too.
Yeah, I mean,
it was in a Gulf blue or an ice blue or something.
I think so. I think you're right. I mean, to be fair, this is a momentous move, but I mean, I'm not in the marketing world, so I just don't know. I think we talked about this a little bit as well. Unfortunately, and I don't agree with this, our society has gotten to the point where they want instant gratification. No one wants to wait for anything anymore. Just like we were talking about that stupid the Tesla truck or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be 10 years before you see one because, you're hyped up now and you put an allocation and you're going to forget all about it. You're like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that thing.
I spent some money here.
Yeah. Well, I'm teleporting now. I don't need that. That's the new next thing that Tesla's got me on.
Yeah, thanks, Elon.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, like, are you going to ever see that? Who knows? Are you ever even going to see the Roadster? Who knows?
Well, I mean, but
at least you know you're going to see this car. It's going to take a little bit of time. And I think that's why they're doing it. But that's based off of zero information. Like, again, I'm totally pulling that out of my ass. Have no idea. That's just my personal opinion on it. And it could be actually just because they want to be able to get people involved and they want people to see it and they're proud of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And what it raised a question for me too, if it is going to take, it may just be first round. That this is why it's taking like tooling and all this other stuff until they start getting production where it's at a normal schedule, normal pace. But is this going to be the same case for anything they do? Fully electric car, Boxster, Cayman, anything? Is it going to be more of a wait?
I don't think so because they're building a separate facility for this.
So maybe that's what.
So I think this is going to be their facility for their e-cars.
Okay.
And I think once that's done, I think these bad boys are going to start rolling out.
Yeah.
However, I want to go rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused by that because usually Porsche is from an internal standpoint, when they're usually doing something, it's not the other way around. Like, oh, we need to build a facility first and then the cars will be ready. It's usually kind of like they're already building something and they're not talking about it. And then the facility is kind of ready to go. And then they have their R&D and then the car's ready to go. So it's kind of strange that there are ones built. And I know that they can build stuff. Don't get me wrong. They have an assembly line already. But that's not where their major manufacturing is going to come from. They're going to have a whole separate facility for that. I just kind of feel like this is un-Porsche-esque to do it. I feel like it's a little backwards for them.
Maybe it's just taking longer for the building, or maybe they knew it would take longer. There's different approvals. I don't know. I mean, it's a whole different car.
But again, it goes back to like, do you feel like maybe they brought it out too soon, or did they feel like they had to talk about it because
they felt like they've been behind the 8 ball for so long because of Tesla being out, and they just need to get things
like, let's talk about this.
Let's just get it going.
Yeah, let's talk about this. We have to be in the conversation.
Yeah, otherwise it may just be way too late.
And we talked about that before with all of the other manufacturers like Ford and and maybe in Volkswagen, and everybody, Audi, everybody's on the cusp. I mean, all of these e-cars are about to start showing up in the next 12 to 18 months on U.S. soil, and people are going to have them, and they're going to be, oh my God, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and da-da-da-da-da, because it's new and it's flashy, and oh my God, yeah. And then it gets dirty and it starts working weird, and then they get upset.
It's true. You never know what's going to happen with this, and I mean, yeah, maybe it is a little show of force. And then, but again, if it is going to take as long as we think it's going to take, then being top of mind is still a thing that needs to happen.
And again, and the reason why I bring that up is just Porsche doesn't seem, from their history, as you know, I mean, obviously we haven't been buyers forever because we were young at some point, but it doesn't seem like they've kind of gone outside of their window of how they usually systematy do something with a car.
Well, they've had to. I mean, they don't have any factories that support this. This is a total new thing for everyone, but even Porsche, they don't have a factory that supports this already. So it wouldn't matter. I mean, a new combustion engine and a new way of a few new tooling things, and they swap it out in their pre-existing factories. I think that makes a new model is super easy to do for them, or at least easier than this would be.
Yeah, the transition's easier.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I didn't look at it that way. I think I don't know, it's obviously that when you said that, my brain actually just thought of something new, because we talked about like how long is this going to last for, meaning like the e-cars, and I'm not saying maybe it'll outlast us and we'll die. I just meant like the wave. We talked, just BSing around like, oh, maybe it's going to last a decade. But the fact that Porsche's committing to a whole factory to build this, they obviously think it's going to last longer than that.
Yep.
So,
and once they get the new factory done and producing cars, they'll probably start going to their old factories and then just, okay, this is what's working, this is what we're using, and then do a renovation on their old stuff. And then now they have 3 or 4 times the production than they would have just off the one factory.
And I think it's a different world over there too, because they're in the EU, so there's a lot of like harsher restrictions.
That's
as far
what I'm
as
saying. Like probably building something new now is probably totally different than when they did it.
Well, yeah, I just meant as far as being able to manufacture a car. I mean, it's challenging across the board everywhere. Mm-hmm. We've talked to a lot of people in the auto industry at higher levels, and they're like, you have no idea how difficult it is to make a new car.
And then batteries. I mean, everything's outlawed, can't be shipped everywhere and all that. And you've got chemicals and who knows what.
A whole new list of new problems, right?
Exactly.
Like, how do you dispose of this thing properly? Mm-hmm. I mean, what do you do when this thing grenades or something?
Yeah, does the fire department have a good, the right stuff to put this out?
Yeah, exactly.
If it gets on fire, not that you want it to catch on fire, but those are those
things.
Is
every fire station now going to have aircraft suppressant material to spray on these cars when they get in auto accidents or something? I didn't even think about that. That's a whole nother gamut of BS.
Exactly. There's levels.
Yeah. Anyways, I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to hear your thought behind that. Why they're showing up, why they're not showing up. So, tell us in the comments below, when you see this. I'd love to hear what you guys had to think about this. Why they are showing up? Are they trying to string this along for all the people that are? Because we've heard mixed reviews. People that have allocations that are like, oh, I'm going to redact my allocation. I don't really think I want it. things like that. So I'd be interested in hear what the listeners have to say about this. So let's go ahead and close as some reminders. Reminder, we have a YouTube channel, right? We don't say that enough. We do have a YouTube channel. There's crazy reviews. Fortunately for us, we have some great members and people that are out there that give us opportunities to review cars that have 8 miles on it, 500 miles on it. Like we recently drove a GT2 RS with 500 miles on it, and he's a P-Car Club member, and he invited us up to his ranch. And
super cool.
If you want to see that video, please go to our YouTube channel, subscribe so you can see all the stuff we do. We're always trying to provide content for you guys. We're trying to be that Porsche source for you guys. We're trying to be your hub for information so you guys can live your life and not have to hunt down stuff from all these different sources. We can be the one source for you. In addition to that, we don't say this enough either. If you have a car that you want us to review and we may be in your city, please pay attention to our travels. Go to our Instagram, right? PCAR Talk, and send us a message or email us at pcartalk.com. Tell us what you have, where you live at, and we may be traveling through your city. I mean, we're everywhere. We're in California, we're in Texas, we're in Georgia, we're in Florida, Chicago. We'll be in New York, Connecticut. We're all over the place. So just because we can't review it next week doesn't mean we don't have interest in the future on it. So please email us. And anytime we're in the city, like for example, we're in Daytona, if you had brought your car, although the weather wasn't great, we could have probably reviewed somebody's car if they reached out to us in plenty enough time, because we had some downtime while we were there. That's a prime example. So like if we're in LA, like I said, we're in Miami, we're Jacksonville, we're all over the place. So if you have a Porsche and you're listening and you want us to review your car, we would love to review your car. We'd love to showcase your cars. We'd love to thank you. Love to give you a shout out, all that great stuff. Please contact us at those sources and let us know, and we'll definitely knock that out. I don't have anything else to go over with them. Do you have anything else to go over with them?
Fresh out of things.
Okay. So we went over a lot of stuff. We want to appreciate everybody who does listen to us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And one more request before we go off the air and talk about everybody that's listening. We have like hundreds and hundreds of people that are actually listening, which is great. And we really love that. Do us a super solid. All of you that are listening, have one more person start to listen to us.
Yeah.
Just one more. That's a request. And not just, I'm going to listen to this one. Like, really talk about it. Like, just like, hey, bro, you should check out this Porsche thing. It's pretty cool. And I don't know, man. They're all right. Cut that shit. Actually say, hey, man, these guys are solid guys. These guys are hustling. They're trying to do some stuff. Listen to them. Give them a shout. It's free. Everybody likes free. Yeah. And then maybe if they're really diehards, maybe they'll join the P-Car Club. But, one step at a time. Let's get them to listen. Bring one more person in. Yep. I know you guys have buddies. Like, there's so many few Porsche guys, because we travel well together, that you're out there on an island by yourself.
It's true.
And if you are, guess what? Start talking to people about the show, because now it's a conversation piece.
Yeah, at least you have something to start.
What's a conversation piece? It's a reason to start a conversation with somebody.
You got friends, and then now you have people to drive with, and then
yeah, exactly. So I'm requesting gauntlet down. Get one more person to join, and then everybody who is a member that's actually listening, as the challenge is always, get another person to become a member. Let's do it, guys. Love you guys. See you guys soon.
That's it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCAR Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCAR Talk or online at pcartalk.com.